To my fellow delegates and to the committee, a pleasant day to all. I'm Angela May Catbagan from the Philippines, and I will be presenting my research entitled The Impact of Client-Centricity Strategy on the Retention of Clients in Selected Commercial Banks in Makati area. To give you a short background, client-centricity strategy is also called customer-oriented, customer-facing, and customer-focused. It is an approach or strategy that deals with the needs and wants of clients in every way. Several studies have identified that utilizing different strategies can be beneficial in the retention of clients. For instance, some studies in Africa mention that those banks using four pillars can promote more clients than those who don't employ these practices. According to Hemmel and Raidmaker 2016, client centricity strategy has been in the field of study of most banks. In the advent of the current pandemic, banks must also leverage their approach to the current situation to retain clients. Based on the literature review, the efficacy of client centricity strategy have led to different level of client retention. This study will determine the impact of client centricity through its four pillars: the targeting, which target mass market level or segment level to be able to attain clients centricity strategy; the metric, which company use to measure success; the value proposition, which attained through gathering feedback from clients; and the cross-departmental collaboration, which ensures that all information and decision flow accordingly in all departments. The impact of the pandemic escalated globally, which in turn led to significant production disruption and resulted in the forced business closure and disruption to trade and business globally. Following the shutdown of many businesses in the Philippines during the surge of the pandemic, financial institutions are not exempted. In a survey made by International Finance Corporation last 2020 states that loan disbursements on October to November of 2020 of FIs in Southeast Asia decelerated due to the crisis. With the closure of most businesses in the Philippines, commercial banks must know how these clients will stay in the bank. This study aims to provide information to any sectors and institutions like academe, commerce, and financial institutions, most commonly in the banking sector, that nowadays are going through diverse change in strategic approach. The general objective of this study is to investigate the impact of client centricity strategy on the retention of banks' clients. The specific objectives are to evaluate the level of client centricity and client retention, to measure the highest usage of client centricity among the top 5 commercial banks, to determine the relationship of client centricity strategy to client retention, and to determine the influence of client centricity strategy on client retention. The following null hypothesis will be refuted to accept the alternative hypothesis. First hypothesis is there is no differences in usage of client centricity among the top 5 commercial banks. Second, that there is no relationship between client centricity strategy and client retention. And lastly, client centricity strategy has no influence on client retention. For the theoretical framework, this study is anchored on the theory of outside-in and inside-out thinking by Hemmel and Raidmaker 2016. The outside-in train of thought starts consistently at the customer and flows back to the organization. Client perception is the mainstream of this study, therefore this theory will have a great contribution to the study. Since the basic awareness of client centricity strategy will come from the outside of the organization, which is the clients. To support T1, organizational contingency theory by Ching Andu 2016 states that the ideal strategy of an organization is not fixed but is rather dependent on internal and external context. Targeting and cross-departmental collaboration are both internal context, and metric and value proposition are both external context. By adopting this theory in using client centricity strategy, it enables organization to learn from different situations. For the last theory is SET, or the Social Exchange Theory, by Ohisima 2020. This processes that social behavior is the result of an exchange process aimed at maximizing benefits and minimizing cost. The importance of this theory is to help analyze transactions' impacts on costs and rewards of utilizing client-centricity strategy. For the research paradigm, the framework exemplified in this figure shows the relationship of client-centricity strategy and its pillars to client retention using descriptive statistics and multiple regression. For the methodology, the respondents of the study were employees of commercial banks. The strategy questionnaire was answered by the officers since they are implementing the strategy, while rank and file answers the question for the level of retention. The study site is in MAKATI, where head office of commercial banks are located. This study is a quantitative approach. Descriptive design was used to observe the respondents' characteristics gathered from the survey. The questionnaires were adapted and developed. Validity test was done using Cronbach Alpha. The questionnaire used Likert-Scale to answer the questions. And to determine the sample size and population, Rousseff calculator, convenient, and stratified sampling was utilized. For the statistical treatment, descriptive statistics through frequency count was utilized, with minimum, maximum, mean, and standard deviation. A bootstrap model was also utilized for multiple comparison. The results and discussions. Bank officers play an integral part in the performance of banks since they are the ones implementing the strategy. The table shows the demographic profile of the bank officers surveyed in the study. A study made by New 2014, the demographic factors of the bank employees have a significant effect on the performance of commercial banks in Kenya. Similar in this study, the varying demographics of the bank officers has a significant effect on decision-making and handling of strategy. For instance, the longer an employee worked in the organization, the more they understand the organization and had an ability to articulate issues of the organization. For objective number 1, as presented in the methodology chapter, this research is composed of two parts. The first stage measured strategy by collecting data from the officers, from supervisors to executive level, since they are the ones implementing the strategy. The second part measured retention by collecting data from the rank and file. Due to the confidentiality of each bank and secrecy law, rank and file employees were used to measure the level of retention since they are also a bank's client. On the basis of the level of client centricity strategies, results shows that participating banks employ these pillars with their clients. Officers and staff were in agreement that these strategies in general establish client retention. Similarly, a study by DADSI 2017 identified these three strategies, namely customer centricity, customer relation management or CRM, and service quality standards, which can be utilized for customer satisfaction and retention. For the second objective, the first pillar of client centricity strategy is targeting. On the raw table shown in the appendix, Bank D has the highest usage of targeting, which customer products and services based on the needs and interests, compared to other banks. Bank B followed as the second higher usage compared to other banks, and Bank A and E has the least usage of the target than Bank C. In terms of value proposition, the reactive and proactive monitoring of customers, there have been differences in the utility of the said strategy across banks. Of the 5 participating banks, Bank E has the least usage of the strategy. The table showing this finding is the appendix. In terms of metric, Bank D and Bank B has the highest usage of metric to measure success compared to other banks, and Bank E has the least usage of metrics of success than others. Finally, in terms of cross-departmental collaboration, Bank B has the highest usage of this pillar than Bank A, C, D, and E, while Bank A has the least usage of cross-departmental collaboration compared to other banks. With all previous data presented on 4 pillars usage across the 5 banks, the perception of these banks regarding retention of their clients does differ. Bank B, for instance, believed that employing all these four strategies, they could retain more clients than other counterparts. Bank A and E, on the other hand, believed that their inability to apply all these strategies lead to fewer clients being retained. Therefore, using the post hoc multi-comparison, the study found that significant differences in the bank's usage of client centricity at a 5% level. In the study of Ching and Du 2016, four pillars associated with client centricity strategy were observed in the South African banks. Employing the same pillars as variables for this research, we have identified that the present top 5 commercial banks differ in terms of utility of strategies in terms of targeting, value proposition, metric, and cross-departmental collaboration. This thus leads to significantly different levels of perceived client retention compared to each other. Moving on to the third objective, when these pillars are cross-analyzed for their effect on client retention, the pillar of metric of success is highly related to increased retention. The remaining three pillars, namely targeting, value proposition, and cross-departmental collaboration, are moderately related to retention. This is supported by the table on the next slide. Result shows that banks retain customers because of client centricity. Therefore, using Pearson correlation, the study found significant correlations between client centricity and client retention at a 5% level. Several studies claim that client centricity strategies show relation to retention. Similar to the findings of the study, client centricity strategy has a relation to client retention. Metric has the highest influence in client centricity. For the last objective, metric as the measure of success has the highest influence on the retention of customers. A 100% increase in usage of client centricity increased retention by 5.4% by target, 99.2% in metric, and 5.3% in cross-departmental collaboration. On the other hand, banks are not reactive and proactive in getting customers' feedback or in value proposition. Study shows that when using metric, targeting, and cross-departmental collaboration, the higher client retention. Whereas banks with minimal usage of value proposition, chances of retaining customers are less compared to those utilizing the four pillars. Therefore, using bootstrap-corrected and accelerated regression, the study found a significant influence of client centricity on client retention at a 5% level. In the study of Kim et al. 2015 states that client centricity innovativeness is a strong driver of brand loyalty in the first-class airline. Similar to the result of this study, the client centricity strategy influenced client retention in a banking sector. For the conclusion, the pillars of client centricity strategy influence client retention, with metric as the highest impact among others when utilized as bank indication for client retention. Satisfied clients are retained because they are carefully targeted, have successful relationship with the bank, and interact with customer and trust that cross-departmental collaboration flow within the firm. The top 5 commercial banks in MAKATI believed and agreed that the utility of these strategies leads to more clients retained. Results of the study support the assertion that when a bank practices this client centricity strategy, a greater client retention can be observed. Therefore, the author recommends the value proposition as one pillar of client centricity may be further explored, since this pillar was the least utilized among others. Also, further studies on this topic and appropriate follow-up to ensure strength of employing these strategies is thus recommended. The academe and commerce may also utilize client centricity strategy for strategy innovation. The following slides are the appendices. Thank you so much for listening.